I remember a couple of years ago, I had a very painful interaction with this older guy who basically told me in very impolite terms, I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he said that he wanted nothing to do with me. And even on a public level, he would not make eye contact with me, which I found very interesting, but also a little bit spineless. I don't think it helps to, wring this artificial regard and concern out of them. Let them show you the extent to which they don't give a damn. If someone disagrees with you, let them disagree with you to the fullest extent of their disdain for your opinion, If someone is your ally, truly let them be your ally. These distinct divisions are the bones of freedom of speech. If we don't let people tell the truth, we don't know who our friends are, we don't know who our enemies are, because everyone is lying. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is Catherine, and today I wanted to talk about a culture of economics I have been participating in. It's something that is beginning to intrigue me in a different type of way. It's actually beginning to scare me, and I wanted to talk to you about it today. I want your opinions, I want your thoughts, and I want to see where this conversation goes. So if you know me in real life on any type of personal level, you'll know that the reason I feel somewhat comfortable talking about the things that I do is because I don't lend very easily to offense. And that's not to say that things don't offend me. Obviously, some things do cut quite deep, but a fundamental to maturity I realized at a very, very young age is that a human being's psychological capacity for concern is exactly what that implies. There exists a capacity. The distribution of that capacity to the concerns of importance is very much a personal navigation. But again, it's very necessary for maturity, because when one cannot intelligently orient their emotional extremes, they will not survive in society. Empathy does expire. There does exist a thing called compassion fatigue. And I think that's why the internet takes so terribly to a continued expression of victimhood. And perhaps that's why we kind of fear being vulnerable, because part of us knows deep down that the level of concern offered to the first vulnerability might have a diminishing capacity, depending of course with who you trust with that information. Don't trust the internet. They will grow sick of your pity party before you even realize that you were having one, and you will be attending as the resident clown because yes, you have just been made the joke. I can definitely think of a few celebrities who have fallen unfortunate victims of this. I'm sure you can too. But this video is not about that. This video is about you and me and how I am literally offering my opinion on the internet, so yes, I am very much so a contributor to the system. Anyway, it's about how we regulate who gets bothered, how bothered they should be given their proximity to a certain marginalization or socio-political influence, and when they should be bothered. We also teach them exactly when it is time for them to be listening and learning, when exactly it is time for them to be fundraising, posting black squares, going on Instagram Live, and just participating in this entire economy of concern through silence or otherwise. And as you can see, we have a lot of power. In fact, it's what makes what I'm doing here to my loyal audience of 10 viewers actually quite terrifying, because you hold that very same leverage against me. I am deliberately exposing myself to you with the vulnerability that you could take whatever it is that I say publicly and run with it. Like you could destroy me if you wanted. And I don't have to like that fact necessarily to prioritize defending it in whatever way I can. I won't censor my comment section because it gets too much for my, my fragile little self to handle. Even though yes, to some extent that might be my right because it is my channel, I just don't see myself doing that. Like I knew what I was getting into, and I don't deliberately ask for your opinions at the start of every video because I don't want them. And also there's a certain exposure to very cautious but articulate frames of reference I get to witness and engage with in my comment section. And I would neglect to open my mind to certain opportunities for humility, certain opportunities for understanding if, I just told everyone to shut up, So it doesn't, help to me to limit the scope of freedom of speech, at least on this channel. There are 1,001 distinct injustices, by no exaggeration, that deserve our activism, our outrage, or at the very least, our emotional concern. From the Yemen civil war to the deadly violence going on in Haiti, to the displacement crisis happening in Afghanistan, the ongoing military escalation in Ethiopia and the DRC, all going on within the same breath that the world turns its gaze to what's happening in Israel and Palestine. One has the responsibility to ask themselves the difficult questions, specifically, to what extent is it indeed possible to invest the appropriate level of involvement and concern to every apparent injustice? And I'm absolutely not saying that one shouldn't. What I am saying is that to neglect to recognize the existence of a capacity to concern is to honestly burden oneself to greater emotional displeasure and disbelief when the people you expect to care don't care enough, or let's be frank, don't care at all. There is a very unique outrage when a celebrity, for example, neglects to express sentiments on a particular subject. There is also a prevailing sentiment that one's silence is categorically expressive of their non-regard for a particular issue or their stance against the more politically palatable narrative. And maybe it is indicative of that, but also maybe it isn't. Either way, that explanation isn't necessarily owed to you or to me. And I don't know about you, but in my personal life, that is a very, very difficult pill to swallow. Oh, but equally, guys, there are consequences for one's explicit neutrality and one's explicit position on a particular subject. Again, I don't know about you, but for me, when it comes to artificial regard, I really don't care for it. I really don't care for it regardless of your proximity to me on a parasocial, on a familial, on a friendship level. If you don't care or if you disagree with me, I would rather you be honest about your disagreement or your disregard. I remember a couple of years ago, I had a very painful interaction with this older guy who basically told me in very impolite terms, I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he said that he wanted nothing to do with me. Mind you, I hadn't done anything to this individual, and the reason I remember it to this day is because it was part of a series of very sensitive interactions I was engaging with as a 11-year-old, where I was trying to introduce myself to a group social setting. Particularly, it was a church youth group setting. As someone who had been, for lack of a better term, a recluse, I really struggled to engage with anyone socially for a very long time. Anyway, there persisted an assumption that just because I distanced myself in social settings, I had a form of social anxiety, which for me has never been the case at all. I have never been introverted, even though for most of my life I did present that way. And so I think he thought that by being as sharp as he was over text, even though we saw each other in social environments, we were forced to interact somewhat because our parents did know each other. And so there was this assumption that I would withdraw to avoid that awkward uncomfortability, which is not my personality at all, but I soon discovered that it was his. And even on a public level, he would not make eye contact with me, which I found very interesting, but also a little bit spineless, because it soon became reflective of a behavior I'm seeing increasingly more pervasive from millennials trending all the way down to Gen Alpha. I think a lot of us tend to approach the more valuable aspects of life with passive expectation, even with regards to friendships, relationships, that kind of thing. We want to be the ones kind of approached first. I think a lot of books, media, TV has sold us the prevailing thought that true success in a relationship, in a business, in school, in love, in intimacy will drop into our laps without some degree of intention to seek them out. That's all to say, in a delicate culture where we passively tread on eggshells so as to not to overtly offend, right? Not to overtly hurt ourselves, not to lose a certain socio-political empathy or parasocial endearment if you are a celebrity, you find a lot of people lying about what they really believe. And if they're not lying about what they believe, then they are lying about the extent to which they care about the things we expect them to care about. Like I said, some people just don't have the emotional capacity to afford the necessary outrage to everything that, deserves outrage. Injustice deserves outrage. But the hard truth that I am especially, really struggling to stomach is that genuine concern is in limited supply. That's why we see so much performative virtue. We would rather be as passive as possible, right? Artificial and disingenuous in our honesty so as to avoid uncomfortable interaction. And the worst part is that the postmodern culture enables that spinelessness because we would rather cancel you or censor you before you quote-unquote harm some hypothetical community or sentiment or ideology with your words. That's why this guy couldn't tell me what he really felt and just look me in the eye. If someone has very little concern for whatever injustice you feel they have the responsibility to bring awareness to because of the size of their platform, I don't think it helps to, wring this artificial regard and concern out of them. Let them show you the extent to which they don't give a damn. If someone disagrees with you, let them disagree with you to the fullest extent of their disdain for your opinion, If someone is your ally, truly let them be your ally. These distinct divisions are the bones of freedom of speech. If we don't let people tell the truth, we don't know who our friends are, we don't know who our enemies are, because everyone is lying. If you believe in something, or hell, if you couldn't care less about something, I will respect you so much more if you express the painful severity of your disregard for my concerns. I will respect you so much more if you told me just how much you have an issue with my opinions. Once you get in my face and look me in the eye, because within someone's eyes, you can actually see how intentional they are in marking their allies and opposers in life. These types of people, you know them from a mile away. They're not in the business of questioning who supports their sentiments and who doesn't to keep the peace. You know what I mean? And they respect you enough to give you the opportunity to do that too in relation to them, because unlike everyone else, they didn't lie. They told you exactly how they felt, and they were explicit in telling you exactly where they stand, so that you are in a better position, so that society is in a better position to cast its judgments and make its alliances. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but when everyone is lying about what they really believe, corruption breeds like a cancer. And that is why freedom of speech is so important. That's why I don't censor my comment section. That is all I have for you guys today. I hope to see you next time. Thank you for joining me. Otherwise, you take care, have a lovely rest of your day, and goodbye.